Business. It isn't just for profits anymore. Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle now. And Bill, there's a group of businesses that refer to themselves as the Business Roundtable, and about 200 such businesses, including big players like General Motors, Amazon, Apple, Bank of America, and others, signed a statement this week basically committing themselves to something different than they have been committing themselves to for the last 20 years in similar statements of official business doctrine. To summarize briefly, in the past, basically a business's primary responsibility is to its shareholders. However, in the new statement, they mentioned that businesses have broader responsibilities, including not only to shareholders, but employees, to suppliers for fair and ethical treatment, as well as to the environment. They mentioned terms related to climate change, diversity, inclusion, dignity, respect, income inequality. Bill, in essence, what it sounds like is a bunch of big corporate fat cats getting together and becoming Bernie Bros.
Yeah, this is Stockholm Syndrome in action. This is what happens to people when they have a gun held to their head. After time, they become sympathetic to the hostage takers, and it's not an act. They understand that I'd better be amenable to this person who's holding a gun to my head, because if I don't, he's going to kill me, and if I do, maybe I'll have a chance to survive this nightmare. So people do all kinds of things under that kind of social pressure, which is enormous. In fact, we always thought that censorship was going to come in the form of just plain censorship, just plain obstruction of what you say by force, backed up by law. That's the big fear that the United States government protected itself against, and that the American people have protected themselves against. We never really imagined that social proof and the ability of the left through social media to destroy somebody, just utterly destroy their reputation, would have the kind of power that it has, but it does. So one of two things is going on here, and I'm going to suspect it's A. These companies are getting together and signing this document because they know it sounds good. They know it's kind of almost required in today's age, and they sign it, and they'll do some token things to indicate that they're basically, adhering to it. But then they'll get on it with business as usual. Or they won't, which seems extremely unlikely to me, but just to play it out. If businesses were to begin to concentrate more on their social benefits of the business, first of all, the social benefit of the business is that it's a business. It's creating wealth out of thin air. I don't know what else you want it to do. It's a magic factory that makes wealth out of something that wasn't there before, but put that aside. If you want to say that these businesses, by signing this manifesto, are going to put more and more of their resources into direct investment in social programs, I suspect what's going to happen is that companies that are not so handicapped are going to come along and clean their clocks. Now, with all of that said, there is, I think, it's so nice to have a consistent philosophy, Scott, because sometimes some of these things seem contradictory. I personally think that it's a company's responsibility, an individual's responsibility to treat their employees fairly, because I'm a moral person, and that's moral behavior. And I've seen innumerable instances where people who treat their employees badly, thinking that they're saving money, are actually slitting their own throats, while those companies that treat them with respect maybe pay them a little bit more, get more than their money's worth. But that should be a voluntary decision on the part of each company and on the part of each employee. Do you want to work in those circumstances for that pay, yes or no? And that's how it works. So,
well, Bill, this does seem to be a voluntary act by these 200 businesses that are members of the Business Roundtable. And it sounds to me, frankly, forgive the expression, like crybaby conservatism that's basically saying the left has been effective at pushing their agenda over the years. The right has not. And now businesses are starting to see the sway in public opinion caused by people like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders over years, if not decades, and say, well, let's get out in front of this parade because that's where the American people are going. Bill, can't you face that you've just lost the debate?
I think in order to clarify what you're saying, let me just tell you what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that the left has been more effective than the right in getting their message out over the last many years. And all of these businesses are heading the direction of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders because they know that that's the direction that things are going. You're exactly correct. Yes, you're exactly correct.
So given that, is it possible that it's not just that they have, as some on the right might say, hijacked academia and the mainstream media, but they've actually got a better message that resonates with the hearts of middle America, and frankly, that the battle is lost at this point?
Well, Scott, that classic hard metal band Spinal Tap gained international renown by being the loudest band in the world. And that's what I really think the message is with the left. I don't think it's a better message. I just think it's a louder message. I think it's a louder message broadcast through speakers in the way that you would in a prison camp, and when you have our soldiers being doing 2 or 3 days of simulated capture, they've got loudspeakers blaring all the time and all the rest of it. It's not a better model. I suspect that if it were up to me as a person responsible to a board and to stockholders, I would say I don't see any harm in signing this paper. Yeah, sure. We love it. Absolutely. No.
Well, there has been some criticism of these businesses, and basically from the left, saying that it's exceedingly vague. But it seems to me, Bill, that this kind of a solution would be the thing that the right would embrace, because it's not government action. It's a bunch of individual corporations. And as we well know, corporations are people, individual people who have decided that they are going to do something voluntarily without government restraint and perhaps obviate the need for such restraint. Have they co-opted the liberals' agenda?
They have accepted the liberal premise, and they've walked into the liberal kill zone, and they're on the liberal battlefield. But just because they do it doesn't mean anybody else has to do it. I can give you some specific examples. Gillette made a commercial that was in line with social justice values and social justice warriors' values, and millions of men said, "I'm never going to shave with this product again." Social justice values have utterly infected the Star Wars franchise and the Star Trek franchise. Star Wars now is open to something called Star Wars Galaxy Edge at Disneyland, and they have to cut employees' time there because nobody is going to see Star Wars at Disneyland. So what we find historically, and when I say historically, I mean in the last 5-6 years, something like that, it's pretty much the same pattern, get woke, go broke. And this is what we see again and again and again. So that to me is evidence that it's not the leftist message that people want. It's the threat of leftist intimidation and this constant barrage of guilt shaming and virtue signaling on the part of the left that makes boardroom executives make these decisions. But when they do make decisions to be more left-leaning, they pay the price for it. The NFL is a classic example. The NFL could have said, look, with Colin Kaepernick, this thing could have been over very quickly. You could say, Colin, listen, we're not depriving you your First Amendment rights to say whatever you want to. You can say it outside on the street outside the stadium. But when you're wearing our uniform, you're working for us. You're representing us now. And if you continue to do this, we're going to fire you. And if they had done that, that would have appealed to, I can't imagine that it would be anything less than 90% of the football fans in America. And I'll bet it's damn near 100% of the football fans in America. If the NFL had said, we just don't want politics in the game, we're not saying you can't practice politics, we're just saying we don't want it on the field, I think 99% of the American public would have been strongly in favor of that. But that's not what they did. They followed the advice of these various ad agencies and the various consulting firms and all the rest of it. Said, no, you have to get in line with this socialist agenda that the left is pushing. And so they did. And so their attendance went through the floor. Also their viewership. Same with ESPN. Same with everybody. You get woke, you go broke. And it is... For the people that are urging companies to do this, that's not a bug, that's a feature. They can't lose. I mean, if Star Wars is all about an individual heroism, toxic masculinity, getting into a fighter plane and bringing down an empire, and they come in and destroy Star Wars with their social justice warrior stuff, it's true that they've killed the golden goose, but they don't really care about that. What they've really done is they've eliminated this mythos from our society that individuality and courage and bravery and maleness and heroics and all the rest of it is held up for reverence. They've just destroyed that, and that's the goal. So if these businesses suffer for doing this, snow skin off the left's nose. They don't like businesses anyway.
Well, and your indication seems to be, if I'm reading you right, that you think that ultimately companies that continue to do what Milton Friedman said in a 1970 New York Times column, that the social responsibility of business is to increase profits, that businesses that do that will have a competitive advantage over businesses that are all bollocksed up in their respecting of diversity and their efforts to save the planet and to mitigate the effects of income inequality.
The highest social service that a corporation can perform, although it's not required to perform any, because that's not why it's there, that's why you have charities. But generally speaking, the most public good to come from businesses will come from businesses that are most going after profit. Because if a company is profit oriented, and I'm saying that they remain within the boundaries of reasonably ethical behavior on this, then a company that is profit oriented is dedicated to doing one thing: increasing sales. And increasing sales is very easy to understand, but very hard to achieve. Increasing sales means you have to put out the finest quality product at the lowest possible price. And when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of individual companies constantly trying to put out a better product at a lower price, not only are they generating the wealth that's created when they actually make the product, here's something valuable that wasn't here before, but more importantly, they're making sure that everybody in society around them gets the best possible quality at the lowest possible price, because that's their motivation, and that should be their sole motivation, really. And to say, well, we're going to make less profit, but we're going to do more social good, it's an oxymoron. The social good they do is by providing this best products at the lowest prices, and parenthetically, the richer the company is and the better it does, presumably, the more tax money it pays anyway. So I think this whole thing is just a pretty easy, kind of a no-brainer marketing ploy on the part of these corporations. I mean, it doesn't cost them anything.
Bill, why do you think it's so difficult for businesses to make the case that you're making? I mean, it just occurred to me while you were talking that if I were the CEO of Apple and I really cared about my shareholders and my customers and my suppliers, that I would make the argument that this device has done more to make income favorable around the world, if not unequal, but at least it has boosted the income of more people around the world. It has made it easier to be able to have a cleaner environment. It is, in fact, all of the goals that these Business Roundtable people have signed on to now could be accomplished if they simply made great products that made the world a better place, no?
The iPhone, aside from all of the companies that are associated with the technology of the iPhone, I'm talking about, like all of the companies that make all the apps and stuff, put that aside. What the iPhone achieved was it allowed essentially anybody on the planet to get in on free market enterprise. If you carve duck decoys with skill and paint them well, because of things like the internet and the iPhone, you can start a business, you can advertise worldwide on Facebook, and people start buying your stuff. It'll appear in PayPal, and it'll go into your bank account from places like Belarus and Peru and wherever other duck fanciers may be. So the social good that is done by something like the iPhone is the iPhone. But to get to your bigger question, which is why doesn't anybody come out and say this? It's because, again, of the Stockholm syndrome and the fear of losing customers by standing up for themselves. But what we find is that when companies stand up for themselves, then actually it increases their product loyalty rather than decreases it. The perfect example of this...
They don't appear to be afraid of losing you, Bill. Doesn't that strike you? Because you're saying they're afraid of losing customers. They're not afraid of losing you.
Look, if they sign a document that says, well, we want to be more conscious of the environment, and then they even go along this whole global warming thing, fine. It doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. What's going to matter is whether or not that makes the company competitive or whether it removes them from being competitive. So the reason that I'm not too perturbed about all this, Scott, is because I am utterly convinced that this is simply a publicity ploy on the part of these corporations, because if the corporations are serious about being less competitive so that they can be more socially active, then those companies will go out of business as they deserve, and they'll be replaced by companies that have a clearer focus on the general good that's done by businesses everywhere. But the bigger point, as you say, is why can't somebody just come out and say this? And the perfect example to me is when you go to a hotel or a motel or whatever the case may be, you will go into the bathroom now everywhere, and you'll see a little sign that says words to the effect of "Help save the planet," which is pretty impressive given the size of the planet. And what they're basically saying is that if you want to have fresh towels every day, fine, leave them on the floor. But if you want to reuse your towels, we don't have to spend all of the Earth's resources doing the washing every day. So since we have to wash less, we use less water and therefore help save the planet. But that's just a plain fig leaf. It's just a fig leaf. Why don't they come out and say the truth? Because the truth is as compelling, at least to me, as it is to anybody else. And the truth is, listen, having to wash towels every day costs us money. If it turns out that you just come out of a shower and take a quick dry off and you put the towel back and you don't need fresh towels tomorrow morning, by not having us wash them every day, that reduces the cost of running the hotel, which means we can make prices lower for you. Why can't you just come out and say that? That's what's driving it. That's what's driving it. They're not doing it for the environment. They're doing it because they want to save money and save costs. They're throwing the big virtue badge on themselves for it. Oh, saving the planet. No, you're trying to save money. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Well, we here at BillWhittle.com are certainly committed to social responsibility. In fact, I happen to know that the members who support this programming here, after they're done watching one of our episodes, they actually recycle them by sharing them with another person. And they pass it around, sometimes to as many as a dozen or more people. Sometimes they share it with their hundreds of people on social media. And so this same effort that Bill and I are expending here and the carbon that we're breathing into the atmosphere in the course of doing it gets shared so many times that it has virtually zero carbon footprint when you spread it out over the entire planet.
Or value either.
Or value. Ladies and gentlemen, we're grateful for the folks at BillWhittle.com who provide the funding for this enterprise. And if you'd like to become one of them, go to BillWhittle.com and click that Become a Member link. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.